Hello and welcome to my channel, Boo Snakes and More. For more videos like this, also watch my other house channel, A&A Snakes and Stuff, my youngest son's channel, Henny's Toys and Games, on my oldest son's channel, Little Chris 10. And please like and subscribe to the video. Today we're going to be talking about The Simpsons, so let's dive in. This episode broke the internet in 1997. But it's endured as a humorous and shockingly relevant Simpsons installment. The Principal and the Pauper episode of The Simpsons sparked controversy and was criticized by fans, but it may be worth re-evaluating. The episode commented on toxic fan bases and people's resistance to change in the fictional world, which is even more relevant in today's internet culture compared to later episodes. The Principal and the Pauper had a focused and ambitious storyline, making it more enjoyable and memorable. In the show's history, nobody can stay in the Garden of Eden, reads one of the most striking lines from James Baldwin's novel Giovanni's Room. This statement is especially true for fans of The Simpsons, many of whom consider only select seasons of the program to be its Garden of Eden. For many years, the default position of diehard fans of the production, especially early devotees, was that seasons 3 to 8 were when The Simpsons was at its peak. This statement has grown more complicated in recent years, thanks to newer generations of fans having more positive assessments of 21st century Simpsons media, as well as the program going through a creative renaissance in recent years. However, for many years, academic literature and media analysis of The Simpsons protested that season 9 was the beginning of the end for this pop culture installation, and The Principal and the Pauper was the episode where everything went downhill. The second episode of the show's 9th season, The Principal and the Pauper, revealed that longtime supporting character Principal Seymour Skinner, Harley Shearer, was not who he said he was. In fact, he was Armin Tamzilling, a man who met the real Seymour Skinner, Martin Sheen, in Vietnam. After Skinner was seemingly killed in combat, Tamzilling returned to Springfield to inform his mother of his demise, only to then assume this man's identity for decades. It was a revelation that inspired claims of worst episode ever across the internet, where outlets like The Guardian and books like Chris Turner's Planet Simpsons pointed at The Principal and the Pauper as a catalyst for the show going off a cliff creatively. Heck, in his audio introduction to the DVD box set for the 9th season of The Simpsons, show creator Matt Groening offhandedly claims this episode is one of his least favorites. Decades of hatred have swerved around The Principal and the Pauper, yet maybe it's worth giving this episode another look. Not only are there laughs to be had in The Principal and the Pauper, but it's also an episode whose commentary on the real world has only grown more relevant in recent years. The principal and the pauper talked about a clingy fan base that's only grown more toxic. On the DVD audio commentary for the principal and the pauper, participants like writer Ken Noller and showrunners Bill Oakley and Joss Winston are immediately defensive about the episode. Years of the internet lambasting this installment have especially upset Killer. Who knows, he still considers this to be the strongest script he'd ever written at the time. However, the quote on this commentary isn't just calling out nasty internet commenters. They have some astute observations on why this episode didn't go over well with viewers. Most insightfully, Oakley observes that the principal and the pauper was an experimental episode. However, unlike other Oakley and Winston era episodes, like the Simpsons spin-off showcase, it didn't immediately look like an experiment. This sort of created frustration in some viewers. Meanwhile, Kinner mentions that one piece of social commentary that was lost on many people was how the principal and the pauper was about how angry people get when reality doesn't align with their expectations. In this episode, Springfieldians like Anita Carpio, Marcia Wallace, and Agnes Skinner, Trace McNeely cannot accept the idea that Skinner is a different person. In the end, they retrieve the exiled Tim Lucy, bring him back to Springfield, and run the real Skinner out of town. They get their cozy status quo back without ever having to confront the harsh truths lying under their noses. In Kinner's eyes, this episode is meant to comment on fans who feel overly possessive of fictional characters and cannot stand the ideal of things ever changing. On these commentaries, folks like Oakley and Winston are rarely open about how they were closely observing online fan responses to The Simpsons in the 1990s. They'd already seen this phenomenon of internet weirdos getting bent out of shape over fictional characters and decided to use this thought process as a bedrock for the principal and the pauper. However, in 1997, when this episode first launched, the internet was still in its infancy, and that kind of online behavior wasn't super commonly known. Today, though, you can't go a week without a toxic fan base lashing out because of any tweaks or additions to long-running pop culture properties. Ghostbusters can't be women. Luke Skywalker must act like this in Star Wars movies. Wanda Maximoff shouldn't behave like this over and over again. General audiences cannot stand the idea that fictional characters are malleable beings who can behave differently under different artists or go in unexpected directions. There's a fine line between criticizing a piece of art because you don't like it and taking the strange stance that certain fictional characters cannot behave or act a certain way. This possessive attitude was in its narcissist stages in the late 1990s, but the principal and the pauper saw the dominance of this entitlement coming. The town's unwillingness to accept the new status quo, encued by Skinner's false identity, not to mention a judge explicitly saying nobody can ever bring up Tim Zini's real name. under punishment of death is a micronism of so much internet disclosure. The principal and the pauper tried to warn us about folks convinced Luke Skywalker can't milk a gigantic sea beast, or that Batman can never smile. Iconically, it got caught up in the online fan disclosure it was trying to critique. The principal and the pauper is no longer the lowest point of The Simpsons. The principal and the pauper doesn't just endure because of its shocking relevancy in the modern world. It's also just an entertaining episode of The Simpsons, complete with several great gags like the ever-escalating number of people in Homer's car aiming to retrieve Tamsin from Capital City. Voice performers like McNeely and Wallace do superb work communicating a real sense of longing for the old Seymour Skinner, while Sheen's work as the real Skinner makes for a great contrast to Schiller's buttoned-up vocals as Tamsin. Even the intentionally abrupt ending in which Tamsin promises to be a more revved up version of Seymour Skinner, are immediately cut short, is amusing and nicely reflects the episode's commentary on overly controlling fan bases. Plus, the show still keeps everything important about Skinner, like his buttoned up nature, intact. It's just his name is different. That makes the townspeople refusing to accept this new status quo extra humorous. However, the principal and the pauper's status as the worst of all Simpsons media also feels odd in the modern world given the episodes that would follow it. The seasons 11 through 18 era of The Simpsons produced countless episodes far worse than anything featured in The Principal and the Pauper. If any episode should be looked at as signaling a perceived decline in quality in The Simpsons, it's ones like Please Homer, Don't Hammer 'em, Prankster Rap, or Kill the Alligator Run. The ambition driving The Principal and the Pauper is completely absent from many of these later episodes, with The Simpsons spending the 2000s trying to mimic South Park through a barrage of politically relevant episodes, and Family Guy through an emphasis on lengthy gags and ramping up Homer's aggressive behavior. These later Simpsons episodes also became too obsessed with overstuffed narratives, with episodes jam-packed with an A and B plot plus a standalone storyline in the first act that leads to nowhere, like Bart's mad race to finish up all his summer vacation plans at the very start of the monkey suit. By contrast, the Principal and the Pauper hits the ground running by immediately focusing on Seymour Skinner inspecting the hallways of Springfield Elementary School. The streamlined focus of this episode is apparent right from the start, rather than suffocated underneath a barrage of other plot lines that don't have room to breathe within 22 minutes of storytelling. That's the kind of element in the Principal and the Pauper that's so much easier to appreciate in the larger sweep of the show's history. Back in 1997, viewers may have taken two message boards right after The Principal and the Pauper, and feeling that this episode couldn't hold a candle to Aunt Maggie Makes 3, and Kate Farrer quickly declared it the worst episode ever. That would be an understandable phenomenon. But to still declare The Principal and the Pauper The absolute worst thing the show has produced in its 34 plus years on the air now. In the
I
modern
thought
word,
taking
its
gout pills
legacy
every day would do
today.
the trick, but I found out that more than one
Diverse
gout flare a year
episode
could mean my gout is out of control,
is
even if I'm
Samar's wish
treating
for
it.
a relic
And
of a
gout buildup
bygone
could damage my
era.
bones and joints
It's so much
permanently.
easier to
Living with
anticipate
out of control gout is a
everything
whole different
the
ballgame.
principal and the power
I
was doing
decided to see a
compared
gout specialist who told me
to
about
the very
Krystexxa.
Simpsons
Krystexxa
concept
is an
of
infused
the
prescription medicine
2000s,
for adults with gout,
or
not
many of the
controlled by other gout
generic
treatments.
My doctor
installments
told me Krystexxa starts
of the
working
show
within
in the
24
early
hours of the first
2010s.
treatment and can remove years of gout buildup in 6 to 12
Thank you for
months.
watching this
Serious
video, and
life-threatening
peace
allergic
out to the
reactions can
next
occur.
one.
Tell your doctor right away if you have symptoms.